My name is Moray. I'm a fashion designer who absolutely adores history. I'm making a series about the marriages and the partners of some of the most famous historical figures in antiquity, and today we're going to be talking about Claudius. There are plenty of portrayals in the media as Claudius as being like a kindly figure. His contemporaries were Nero and Tiberius and bloody Caligula, who were probably the most psychopathic emperors you could get. So of course, in that lineup, in the dynasty, the julio-claudian dynasty, he's going to be portrayed as someone kindly, but actually he had more senators killed than Nero. So that's according to Mary Beard. Claudius was the grandchild of Mark Antony, born in modern-day Lyon in France. He was the first Roman emperor to be born outside of Rome. Not only was Claudius the grandchild of Mark Antony, but he was the nephew of evil Tiberius.
Oh, Jesus. Gross.
Despite this, however, a lot of people did not see his claim to the throne as legitimate, as he wasn't directly part of the julio-claudian dynasty as emperors such as Caligula were. Claudius was also a keen historian. He is one of us. And he was critical of the growing empire, and his family had to stop that. When Augustus died in 14 AD, Claudius asked his uncle Tiberius to be part of the imperial line and was given a no. However, Tiberius ended up dying, and Claudius' nephew Caligula saw keen potential in his uncle. However, it is said that Caligula made his uncle Claudius' life a living hell. In fact, Claudius suffered a lot of abuse from his nephew Caligula, who everyone knows as being absolutely fucking mental. It's said that by the end of Caligula's reign, Claudius was used, abused, and completely worn out. After Caligula died, the Equites, the knights, chose Claudius to lead their group. However, Claudius still had a lot of work to do to legitimize his right to the throne, and that included marriages. According to Suetonius, Claudius' first marriage was to an Etruscan woman who ended up in divorce. Claudius' second marriage to Aelia Patilla ended up in divorce due to Aelia Patilla creating political instability, so she had to go. The wife Claudius had when he took the purple was to a lady called Messalina. Messalina is known to be one of the Roman Parthians' most famous nymphomaniacs, and quite frankly, I do not know much about Messalina before her marriage to Claudius, but we do know that she is Mark Antony's great-granddaughter, which means Claudius and Messalina are cousins, and of course, it's filled with incest. The marriage was filled with incest. And Claudius and Messalina were actually married for a good 7 years. They had 2 kids. Claudius needed the marriage to Messalina despite her thottery.
4 years I have desired a woman who no longer exists.
For you I'll always be Valeria. If only you knew how much I longed for you to come back.
In the arms of Claudius.
Don't you know that a Vestal has no choice in love? Especially when it's the will of the Emperor.
Her family status made her a likely choice in order to solidify his reign. We have anecdotes from people like Juvenal in the 2nd century AD who say that she would leave the palace at night and go and join the brothel so she could have more sex.
Oh my God.
I'm fierce. I'm hunty. I'm working.
I don't know whether this is going to be allowed, and we're going to have to blur a lot of stuff out, right? Historians like Suetonius and Tacitus portray her as sexually insatiable and a weak person because of her want for fuckery and sex. Claudius is portrayed as being easily manipulated by her. In fact, I think that Claudius in general is portrayed as a person who was easily manipulated by everyone. Messalina wasn't only meant to be a woman who was wild in the sheets, she was also wild in the streets, and she targeted a lot of Claudius's family. He had his niece Julia Livia exiled, and she had an eye on Agrippina the Younger, who was also Claudius's niece, and she wanted Agrippina exiled too. She saw Agrippina and her son Nero as being threats to her and her son Britannicus as being in the royal line, so she wanted them gone. However, Agrippina had the last laugh. In 48 AD, Messalina's comeuppance came when she tried to marry her lover Gaius Silius, and the motives for the marriage are unclear, but we do think that it was a power play from her end. After Claudius learned about the marriage, he wanted to spare her, but was convinced not to, and Messalina was executed. You'd think after 3 bad marriages that Claudius would choose a good wife, right? Wrong. Agrippina the Younger, his 4th wife, was unlike nothing we have seen before in Roman history. And yes, she was the mother of Nero, so that's giving you a clue. Agrippina the Younger, her life before she married Claudius was crazy. Agrippina is famous pre-Claudius for being complicit in the Daggers plot. The Daggers plot was a plot where her brother Caligula was on the throne, and her and her sister Livia tried to overthrow her brother. Luckily, Agrippina was exiled, she wasn't killed, having wild lesbian sex.
Here we go, lesbians. Here we go, lesbians. Come on, let's go, let's go.
And trying to take the throne from Caligula. Agrippina was Claudius's niece, and I mean, personally, I think he did it so he could strengthen familiar ties and really prove his lineage. However, Agrippina had Claudius poisoned, so her son Nero could take the throne, in which he did. And yes, Claudius is portrayed throughout history, if you watch the TV show Claudius, as just being kind, gentle, a cuck. And through the lives of the women in his life, we can see that happening. Nero did end up ruling the throne, and Nero had his own mother killed. So, Nero played his own mother. So, the Julio-Claudian dynasty is filled with bad ends, bad eggs. Especially considering, in my opinion, something like the Severan dynasty or the Nero-Antoine dynasty, the dynasty of the 5 good emperors. Yes, it's incestuous, it's crazy, it's full of tea. We love it here. We love to hear about it. As the states of Agrippina the Younger, the deeds of Agrippina show the moral degeneracy of the empire. Anyway, in conclusion, for me, Claudius is not one of my favorite emperors. Is Hadrian. I love the Nero-Antoine dynasty, and I love the Flavians. The Julio-Claudian dynasty is not my favorite, but it does have the most juicy anecdotes and tea in it. So it's fascinating for other people. It's just not my bias. So anyway, if you enjoy these videos, then subscribe. Thanks for listening to me. I'm just learning how to talk on film. That's really important to me. How to articulate myself, how to not have anxiety attacks on film. You know, I love history. It's my favorite time of week when I sit down and do these videos away from my bag job.